Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to give you a field report from my FLGS weekly Dungeons & Dragons Lego Eberron Obsidian campaign, Season 1, Episode 7. So this was the 7th session. And I had something happen tonight that I have never seen at any table before, and it was just a simple statement from one player. Really fascinating. So I'll explain what happened. So I'm not going to bury the lead here. I'll tell you what this player said. So the player said at the table, and this is my Storm player, and he said, "Out of character, I am furious." And I was like, wait, what? So the person was saying, as a player, not the player character, I am furious. And so he was vexed. He was furious at the table. And the way he said it was he simply stated it, right? And I was really impressed with this. I've never seen it done before. And I think it worked out well, but I'm not positive. I don't want to, who shows up to a Dungeons & Dragons game to be furious, right? Now, strange thing is, in my game, in my Dungeons & Dragons campaign, I get it, because I'm very directly trying to reach an emotional state. I want people to walk away with something of significance, right? And I think, something of significance can be wisdom. Something of significance can be knowledge. Something of significance can be a deeper friendship. Something of significance can be an emotion, right? Like that, and not, fun isn't an emotion. Fun is, I think, something small that is sought by small people, right? Fun is a spark that comes off of doing something that's significant. And I think the best way to never find fun is to seek it, right? So it kind of makes sense that somebody would actually not walk away, remain. Well, I think that's what astounded me, is I think if I reached a point where I was saying, hey, as a out of character, I am furious, I would walk away from the table, because I don't think I would be able to control my emotions, and I would be worried that I would make the experience for everybody else at the table poor, right? And that's not what happened. It's truly profound. So let me walk you through this, and we'll get there. So we have, so this involved two characters. Holly, who is two player characters, okay? By the way, I refer to player characters as characters, and I refer to non-player characters as entities. I think it's better language. And so for my Dungeons & Dragons game, I'm going to talk about characters and entities. Characters equals player character, entity equals NPC. I want one word to refer to it. I think acronyms are weak. All right, so weak sauce. And anybody will tell you, like, jargon is jargon. You want to avoid it if you can. Character, entity, right? So two characters, right? Holly, a half-elf, bard, wizard. 5 levels of wizard, 3 levels of bard, right? Zilfair Ufadon. Zilfair is a high elf, 9th level cleric, okay, who serves Kelemvor, right? The Storm player is playing Zilfair, high elf, cleric, 9th level, okay? So Holly's character recently had one third of her hit points removed from her permanently by Kelemvor, right? And the reason why was Holly attempted to wake up Zilfair by smacking, in character. Holly went to smack Zilfair in the face, right? And actually did. Smacked her right in the, so Holly smacked Zilfair right in the face. First of all, this is a big deal. I am really opposed to any player ever attacking another player. I feel like the game has failed and things are going in the wrong direction if this happens, right? And so I can't say I don't allow it, right? I can't stop a player. I can't stop a character from doing anything, right? Because those characters are controlled by their player. It's the one thing in the campaign, one thing in the session I cannot control, right? But if a player is literally attacking another player, I am going to use my narrative power to say, you do not want to continue down this road. So I was telling every player at the table, you attack another player at this table, you are going to permanently be punished for this in the story, right? And so I had Kelemvor do that, right? So at this point, Zilfair has a strong relationship with Kelemvor, and is progressing well from a level perspective and is growing in power, right? And at this point, Zilfair has established direct communication with Kelemvor and can speak to Kelemvor directly, right? And so basically, then we get to another point in the adventure, and all of the player characters come across a woman in the high plains, right? They see that she is dehydrated, lost, and is struggling to survive in the plains, right? And the characters, controlled by the players, literally walked around her. They're like, that's bait. It's not our problem. We're not going to deal with it, right? Now, they were 100% right. This was the last noble member of House Orient, right? And so even aiding her absolutely could have, gotten them into a ton of trouble, right? Like a ton of woe, a ton of burden, a ton of strife, right? They were right that it wasn't bait. It was me saying, hey, you've come across the Anastasia of House Orient, right? This is the last House Orient noble. And they were literally like, and they, now they at the time they didn't know, but they knew, like, here's this, this woman, she's in the middle of the plains, she's dehydrated, she's struggling to survive, right? And they're like, we're trying, we're on our adventure here, we have a place we're heading, we do not want to get distracted by this, and we're just going to go around it. And as a dungeon master, I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? Like, this is, So then Zilfair talks to this 9th level high elf cleric, talks to Kelemvor, and Kelemvor is like, hey, and Zilfair says, hey, I think my power is waning. And he's like, and Kelemvor is like, you bet your power is waning. You recently came across somebody who needed aid, and you didn't give them aid. And Zilfair's like, hey, you're the god of death, right? You ain't supposed to be worried. If she goes your way, what's it matter to you? You're neutral, right? You're in the middle between evil and good, right? And Kelemvor says to Zilfair, I've granted you power, right? But what are you going to use that power for, right? If not to aid people, right? So this is me, the dungeon master, speaking for Kelemvor, right? And Zilfair's like, you do not sound like yourself. I do not trust that you are you, right? And Kelemvor says, well, I've been granted you all this power. Do you wish to walk away from that power? And Zilfair, to the player's credit, right, was like, I don't think you're you. I deny you are you, right? And Kelemvor's like, I'm going to show you I'm me. I'm going to remove all your power, right? And he did. Right, so Kelemvor removes Zilfair's power, right? At this point, the Storm player says, I am out of, he says these words, quote, out of character, I am furious, end quote, right? Like, I had never heard this at a table before, right? Now, I have been vexed at a table, right? I can't say I was ever furious. I've been vexed, right? So I've had a similar feeling, right? And when it happens, I am not in a good space, right? So this Storm player really just like threw it down, right? And made it very clear that they were, as a player, furious, right? Just stated it openly and clearly, right? But then, right, I just moved, I said, thank you for telling me. And then I moved on to the next player. But I was also like, but then I did say, actually, before I went on, I was like, all of your powers, that all of your cleric powers are gone, and you literally are 8th level. You have your attributes, you have your proficiency. You're still going to get your proficiency die. You have all your skills. Every single feat, every single power you have is gone, and you are working off the acolyte block in the monster menu, right? And it was incredible, right? Because I was ready for him to, step up from the table, walk away from the table. I was, but the other thing is, I run my campaign very, very fast, right? I run a 2-hour game. I don't mess around with 4-hour stories. I don't run hour-and-a-half combats, right? Combats in my game last 10, 20 minutes max, right? And we cover more ground in 2 hours than most Dungeon Masters cover in 6 to 8, right? So my story is running 3 times faster, right? Now, the biggest thing I do to do this is every single character, 3 hits and you're out. Literally, you take 3 wounds and you're out, right? And you're in death saves. You are in death saves, right? And then my entities do not have any death saves, right? You kill them, they're dead, right? And then in addition to that, they have 3 hits and they're out unless they have hundreds of hit points. For every hundreds of hit points, they get an additional wound in each of those 3 wound sections, right? So, a dragon with 500 hit points is going to have essentially take 15 wounds. But my characters, they only have 3 wounds. That's it, period. And I never increase that. Which puts a ton of tension, right? Like, death saves come fast in my D&D game, right? And one of the things is, I don't assume this is going to work. I do not assume that my D&D campaigns, I run it until the wheels fall off. Last time I did this, it took 2.5 years for the wheels to fall off. But the wheels fell off, right? And, I drive it like I stole it. That's the way it is, right? And what I'm saying is, and that's one of the reasons why, I invited one ride or vi player. I know this guy is down. He has been with me for 10 years, and he is ready to rock, right? He's got his D20 strapped, on a holster, man. That dude's ready, right? And he's the one where I know, okay, I have some leeway here. But I do not expect that leeway from anyone else, right? And so what really astounded me was this player stated flat out, I am furious, right? What he said flat out was, out of character, I'm furious. He was saying, as a player, I'm furious, right? Then he controlled himself at the table. At no point, even when he said those words, did he ever raise his voice. He had complete, and what's wild was he was experiencing the emotion. That was very clear to me. I could see it in his face. I could see it in his eyes. I could see it in his body was tense, right? But he controlled himself in the middle of that emotion at the table. That is next tier play. That is podium play, right? I was extremely impressed with this. And then what truly astounded me is at the end of the session, I was like, hey, thank you. I know that was, a struggle, for you. And I was like, take a week and determine what you're going to do. And he says, I know what I'm going to do, right? He's like, I think that Kelemvor has changed, and I am going to usurp him as a god, right? I'm going to bring about the downfall of Kelemvor, right? He didn't say specifically replace him. He was like, I'm going to cause the downfall of Kelemvor. I'm going to unseat him. Right? I was like, whoa, wow. You're going to take down a god? And he's like, yes. Right? And I was like, woo! And this is what I love about Dungeons and Dragons, when you can stop writing. Right? When your players are writing what comes next, right? That is epic, right? That is engaging with the story, right? And it was truly incredible. And I was, very, very impressed, right? Now, one of the things that, one of the things I've reached the level of is I never expect that a player is going to be in that seat next week. I think a lot of dungeon masters do that. Oh, I'm going to run this forever. Everything's going to work. Nothing's ever going to change. I'm like, dude, man, you drop in, you run your campaign, get it done quick, you get it done right. You do not assume anything, right? So I think this player will be there next week and will move forward with their plan. And I'm extremely excited for that, right? But one of the things I think is really interesting too is this campaign has some momentum, right? And players are putting up goals and knocking those goals down and achieving them, right? And are flexible enough with this outrageously different take on, with a full embrace of page 4. The rules aren't in charge, you're in charge. Boy, is that true in my campaign, right? But I was incredibly impressed with this player in the way they were able to handle themselves in the midst of intense emotion. And I can tell you right now, I do not have that level of control, but I just witnessed it, which means I might be able to do it in the future, right? Dungeons and Dragons is transformative, right? You can learn, they can learn. I don't know if I'm teaching anyone at that table anything, but I sure as heck am learning, right? Every single word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.